What if the patterns you keep repeating aren't because something is wrong with you, but because your system learned them when it needed protection? And what if right now your mind and energy are ready for something different? Today, we're clearing old patterns and stagnant energy. You know, the kind that quietly runs in the background until you finally decide this no longer belongs with me. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Psychically Speaking with Lisa Ann, the place where intuition meets real life truth with just the right dash of sass. I'm your host, Lisa Ann, psychic medium, intuitive healer, intuitive coach, and your guide for clarity, healing, and soul aligned living. And today, we're talking about clearing old patterns and energy, not by forcing change, not by constantly reliving the past, but by gently teaching your mind and energy system that it's safe to let go and move forward. Did you ever wonder why patterns stick even when we're over them? Well, here's something important to understand. Patterns don't stay because you're weak. They stay because at one point they actually worked. Your mind and nervous system learn certain responses, how to react, how to protect, how to anticipate, and they keep running those programs automatically. And here's the key part that most people miss. Your system doesn't update patterns based on time. It updates them based on awareness and choice. So when we talk about clearing old energy, we're not fighting it. We're simply letting our system know that was then and this is now. Now, old patterns usually show up as familiar inner dialogue. You know, we say things like, this always happens to me. I know better, but I don't know why I keep doing this. Or how about, I should be past this by now. Those thoughts aren't random. They're signals that your mind is replaying something old because it hasn't received a clear new instruction yet. And once the instructions change, the pattern naturally loses its grip. Think about a file cabinet. Your file cabinet doesn't automatically clean itself and organize itself. You have to go in there, whether it's files in a cabinet or folders on your desktop. You have to go in there and go through the files, clearing out the old what you don't need and keeping the things that you still need to use. Now, here's how clearing actually happens. Clearing is not dramatic. It's subtle, it's intentional, and powerful. It happens when you notice a familiar reaction. You pause instead of reacting. You choose a new internal response. That pause is everything. Because in that pause, you're no longer running the old program. You're actually creating a new one. And the more often you pause, the weaker the old pattern becomes. I've literally, when working with clients that I'm doing intuitive coaching with, I've literally had them cut out a piece of paper in a circle, write the word pause, and keep it on their desk so that whenever something comes up, they physically hit the button, the paper pause button, to remind them to not react. It's just a subtle, intentional, and powerful shift that helps you to now have a new internal response. Now, energy shifts when decision shifts. Not loud declarations, not forcing positivity, simply quiet decisions like, I don't need this response anymore. This pattern doesn't match who I am now, or I choose differently in this moment. I'll share with you an example from my own life as to how I became aware of an old pattern that I no longer needed to hold on to, And the exact steps that I used to shift that energy and choose differently in that moment, creating a new energy and a new pattern. So at the time of this podcast, I've been doing psychic medium readings, intuitive healing for 30 years now. And over that time, there have been many, many, many times when people have felt the need to insult what I do for a living or challenge me for what I do for a living. And the old me was always in this pattern of feeling that I needed to defend myself or prove myself. And whenever someone would come at me with, you're doing the work of the devil or whatever it was, I would go into this same speech, right? Instantly going into defense mechanism. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I was raised Catholic and I believe in blah, 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 and I wear the Blessed Mother pinned to my bra and all this stuff. And I remember one day somebody just, that usual coming at you energy, right? And for some reason in that moment, I thought to myself, they're not coming at me to put me in that place of defensiveness. They're coming at me with these questions, even though it was coming across as like insulting and negative. They were coming at me with these questions because there was something that was unsettled in them. And that was one of the first times that I remember taking a step back. And instead of explaining from a defensive place, and instead of taking it personally, I was able to identify the pattern that I always went to, right? In feeling like I need to be taken seriously and I have to prove myself to people. And instead, I ended up just having a conversation about how being raised Catholic in the beginning, when I started doing readings, I struggled with the decision as well. And what I did to kind of educate myself and have a new understanding that, you know what, and I say this all the time, being psychic is not a gift. We are all psychic. We are all intuitive. We all have healing abilities. Once I was able to put down the shield and the sword, so to speak, and just have a conversation, it really shifted everything for me. Now, the interesting thing about it was months later, when someone else would say something to me, I literally had to consciously, in my mind, say, stop. This is not who I am anymore. And I would remind myself that I was choosing differently in this moment. And I no longer allow myself to go to that place of defending myself, of explaining myself. I will have a conversation with someone if they need information, but I'm not going to allow anybody to take my power away. And it's so interesting how much peace you feel when you are able to identify the patterns and shift the energy. Now, here's something very important that I really want to stress, because I think when we're doing this work and we go, okay, I get this, I'm going to do this, and we're doing really good with it, and we're, identifying patterns and we're working with energy, and then all of a sudden something happens and we kind of revert back to the old us, so to speak. So many times people will reach out to me and go, oh my God, all this stuff that I've done and I failed, right? And I want to be very clear about this. That old part of you that was in that pattern, that had that energy shift going on, it doesn't just magically disappear, okay? It's always going to be there. And that's why things like the pause button are so important, because it's not about never being in that place again. It's just that you're going to automatically identify it, and you're going to make that choice in that moment to shift that energy and handle it differently. So, this week, I want you to try this. When you notice an old pattern showing up, whether it's a thought, a reaction, an emotion, or a habit, I want you to just say to yourself, this is familiar and I choose something new. Then I want you to just take a slow breath. That's it. There's no fixing, no analyzing, just awareness and choice. So remember, you don't clear old patterns by fighting them. You clear them by outgrowing them. And the moment you become aware of a pattern, it's already beginning to loosen. So trust that your system knows how to update itself once you give it permission. Thank you for joining me today on Psychically Speaking. If this episode resonated with you, I truly appreciate you subscribing to the podcast, leaving a review, and sharing it with someone who could use a little inspiration. It's one of the best ways you can help this show grow and reach more beautiful souls. And remember to join me for my free weekly Psychically Speaking Live held via Zoom. For more information about my work, upcoming events, or working with me directly, visit spiritquestnc.com. Until next time, stay grounded, stay aware, and trust your inner knowing.